It's August 20th, 2025, and this is episode 533. Today we have Beth, Andy, Brian, and I am Jimmy. And this is the Daily AI Show. Thank you everyone for joining the live stream, and to all of you who are watching a little later. If you haven't already, click the bell, like, subscribe, and join the newsletter at thedailyAIshow.com. Okay, let's do a quick lightning round of stories from everyone before we dive into this week's news adventure. All right, Andy, what is your lightning round story?
A quickie. All of you spreadsheet jockeys, now Excel has added Copilot function to the cell. And all you do is you say in the cell equals Copilot, and then the parameters that you add are the prompt followed by context. And those can reference, the context can reference cells in the existing workbook. That makes it a heck of a lot simpler to actually perform actions within Excel. I don't use Excel anymore because it's expensive, and Google Sheets are free. So I moved everything that way. So I haven't tried it, but this is the future. And of course, Google Sheets will have many more AI capable functions added to it to maintain parity with Excel going forward. So try it out.
Awesome. Brian, what's your lightning round story?
Same as Andy's. He stole it from me. I will add this. This is in the category of I thought this already existed. So I did. I would have already thought you could use Copilot in Excel. That it's cool. I'm curious how it'll affect companies like Clay, and whether people will be able to build some homegrown type situations. I mean, Clay is already connected to a lot of that. Clay is used for lead gen in sales. So a lot of different areas. So there's some, like they have a moat in that sense, but in terms of a waterfall from left to right on a spreadsheet, if you can imagine what you can do in Clay is if I say, go out and find me all the churches within a 20-mile radius of my house, right? That's a big old lump, plop it into Clay. And then going from left to right, every new column that I have in there, I can write net new AI prompts that further refine that list. Okay, out of those 400 that I don't know how many churches are within 20 miles of me. Probably, I live in Florida, probably 400. 400 churches that are in this area. I only want to know Lutheran churches. Okay, out of the Lutheran churches, I only want to know the ones that are big enough to have a in-house band. Okay, out of the ones that only have in-house bands and obviously do stuff, I want to know whatever, right? And you can just left to right waterfall that. Well, that's what I would do. Clay has his own use cases, but if I was thinking about how would I use Copilot in Excel, that's exactly how I would be doing it. It's like start on the far left and go broad, whatever your idea. It doesn't have to be lead gen. Just start big with your idea with very little parameters and move from left to right until your farthest right column is a highly focused area. You could do this for taxonomies. You could do this for all sorts of ideas and move from left to right. So it is cool that it's there, but I will also say, Jimmy or Andy, I don't know, Beth, when did we teach at AI Exchange? And GPT for Sheets was a thing back then, plus years ago. So this did exist and has existed inside of Google Sheets and actually Excel for a really long time. But it's cool that it's native, and I'm sure that with some of our clients, we will certainly play with it. So yeah, same story, but just a different take on it.
Yep.
All right, Beth, what is your lightning round story?
My lightning round is that on August 18th, CEO Sam Altman said during a press conference, "I'm worried about China." And Sam doesn't often do off the cuff, on the record kind of statements like this. There are lots of reasons for it, but it is news because yay, I like to know that you're worried about China, even if I look at the ulterior motives for this, because if this were a different show, Brian and I would be having conversations about why Sam might say that. What is in Sam's interest? Mm-hmm. But that's my quick story.
All right, and my lightning round story for today is we now have voice in Google Docs. So
Oh,
your
nice.
Google Doc can be read to you. That was promised months ago that they'd have these voice features like Notebook LM added to it, but now you can just read off your Google Docs, which I think will be it's a great time saver for me, because then I can listen to it while I'm working on stuff or working in parallel with it.
So that's interesting. I'm going to say Brian's. I thought it already had it, and it did. It was an accessibility feature.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
did they just like?
I think what they
I
did is they added the Notebook LM that then got added into Gemini, has now been added into Docs. Like, if you haven't followed the pattern there,
It's those friends that are reading it to you now. Okay,
yeah, it's more Gemini than accessibility, right? Like, it was probably a very what was that called? What was that called when you used to be able to dial in a number on an old phone and have something talk to text, talk to anyway.
Oh,
the
yeah.
accessibility thing.
TTY.
TTY, yeah. So like, to me, I think that's probably what it was. Beth, was some like older. Oh no, you're saying no, it was AI.
No, it read it aloud to you.
But
right?
was it? Do you think it was using AI to do that, or it was like literally just reading it back to you the way like you would do back in the old days when you had like you were doing
Like dictation,
learning a language and using Dragon or whatever that company was that was always around.
Dragon Dictate. Yeah.
Dragon Dictate, right? That was a company,
Yeah.
right? I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
my dad used that back in the 90s.
Deep conversation. We're not going to continue to have it, but I'm going to preface recap and rabbit holes for Friday. Maybe we'll know more about what is different about it.
Right.
You know, I mean, if I can swerve off of this really quick, Jimmy, I wasn't even going to bring this up, but you know what? This is sort of news because I am just blown away by how cool it is. I think I've talked about this on the show. Google's Storybook. Now, that might have come out technically more than 7 days ago. Did you guys like seriously cover it last Wednesday? Do you know?
We covered it, but we didn't go in depth
Seriously.
on it. We mentioned it. Yeah.
Okay. Let me then, if that's the case, I didn't want to like rehash something you guys had already done and I missed, but let's just bring this up on the screen really quick. Okay. This feature inside of Gemini is bonkers to me. And let me show you why. Now, like, I should not be surprised by these things anymore with what Gemini can do. I really shouldn't, but they still keep flooring me. And so the reason I wanted to use it as a swerve or a weave, we would say a weave from that last story, is because you're watching Notebook LM and Labs, like as we've always seen with Google, that's the training ground. And where does it go? Well, we watch the audio versions of Notebook LM that everybody calls the podcast feature. It's now available directly inside of Gemini. You can use it anytime you want. It can pull up that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, I don't have to go to Notebook LM for that anymore. Oh, I have the study and learn. That was a little bit more like, actually, I think study and learn is GPTs. Andy, do you remember what the Gemini one was called?
No.
Anyway, doesn't matter. It's probably here somewhere if I looked at it. Let's see. No, thought I'd take a shot. Anyway, so now we have this storybook. Now, I chose to use this for a child story, but I don't want anybody to get it twisted. You don't have to, okay? This isn't just to write children's stories. That's just where my brain went with it. And so I wanted to try it. And so I've said, if you look up here, I'm not going to share all that actually, because I don't want to share information about my daughter that like, I'll share it with Gemini, but not the world, guys. I have my limits. No, only because I've said this many times on the show. It's nothing my daughter wouldn't say. My daughter has dealt with anxiety since she was born. We didn't know that at the time, but when you truly say like somebody is born with their brain a certain way, that's the way I think of my daughter now, as opposed to earlier. And that's a really important distinction because oftentimes people want to throw it on social media or things that would have happened to her later in her life. But this is a story we tell all the time. When my daughter was like 3, old enough to know who Santa Claus was, right? In our house, we have a lanai outside. It's a screened-in porch. And I'll just hide this on the screen when I tell this really quick, and I'll show the story. And then really quick, my daughter, when we said about Santa Claus, we don't have a chimney. We're in Florida, but it's got a chimney. He just magically comes in the house or whatever. And my daughter was like, at like 3, was like, whoa, let's pause. Let's time it right there. Who's coming in the house while I'm sleeping? And we're like, it's Santa Claus. And me and my wife were like, isn't this great? My daughter was like, no, this is not okay. I'm not okay with this. And like in a very 3 or 4 year old way that she told us in no uncertain terms, was Santa Claus creeping around the house at night while she was sleeping in her bed. That was not comforting to her in the least bit. So what did we do? We pivoted, as parents do, and Santa left all the presents out on the screened in lanai in a very Florida way. In the morning, we're like, what did Santa leave? And my daughter runs to the back door, which had a big glass door on it, opens the door. Santa had eaten some of the cookies, drank some of the milk, gave some of the carrots to the reindeer, and the presents were on the back porch. And she was totally fine with that. Okay. This was a real story. I turned this into me and Gemini worked very hard on the illustrations, and we turned this into a book. Look how cool this is. So it's Lily's Fancy Brain and the Christmas Worry. And what it does, first of all, complete adherence to the character across 3 books now. Lily looks like this. So do her parents throughout the entire book, right? And other books. So Gemini had no problem with keeping consistent characters throughout a series, right? So not only do we have this amazing book, and it's talking all about how she got really worried about the fancy man, a man with a big white beard coming inside my house. And she whispers to her mom, and her mom says, hey, look, I understand that it's scary. And what I wanted out of this book was to help kids in a way like Sophia, my daughter, would, to say, hey, your brain is really amazing. And this isn't necessarily a detriment. It's just a different way that your brain works with anxiety in a positive way. And then the dad comes in and he's like, your feelings are really important. We love what your fancy brain is able to do, right? And so they come up with an idea. What's that idea? Well, what if we ran him a note and left him, we left stuff on the porch. So she leaves her cookies on the front porch. And of course, the next day, the porch has the presents. And there's a summary here on page 10. Having a fancy brain was sometimes tricky, but it was also what made her Lily. And with her family's love, she knew that every single part of her was exactly perfectly right. Now, here's the other cool part about this. Comes with it, right? It's a kind of a boat. Wait, there's more. You can.
On Christmas Eve, Lily helped Mommy write the note. They put it on the front door with a big plate of cookies and a tall glass of milk.
You can't hear it?
Right on the welcome mat.
Yeah.
Lily felt the happy little wiggle.
Okay.
We can hear it. We couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. You could hear it though. Okay. There's that voice, and I'll just play the other one. There's a low pitched one. I'll just play it really quick.
On Christmas Eve, Lily helped Mommy write the note. They put it on the front door with...
Right? Very, very cool. So I just, not to make the whole show about this, but like, go play with this. If you have kids, first of all, we're now living in a world of 2025 where your child can come up with a fancy dragon idea. You can create the book while they're still brushing their teeth and settle down in bed and either have it read by 2 different voices or read it with them on your iPad, on your phone, on your whatever. I literally went upstairs, truthfully, with tears in my eyes, and shared this with my daughter, who's now 14, and shared it with her. And I said, I want to show you something I created. And my daughter, being 14, leaned into me in her bed and she said, I love it. That's exactly right. Do you think we could make more of these for kids? And I said, oh, Sophia, let me tell you about prompt adherence and character consistency and blah, 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 blah. And she said, all right. And so then I came down the next morning. I said, well, let me just try. And Gemini is like, yeah, I'll make more Lily books for you. And then just did. Dude, what are we talking about?
Great.
This is so cool.
Yeah.
You could do this for anything. Not just kids' books. You could do it literally for anything. And this is, once again, free by Google and Gemini.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I have my grandson ever here loving books and the simplest books. And I'm going to start this today. I'm going to generate a book. I do wish that it could be rendered in print because we don't like him to, interact with the screen.
Well,
yeah.
Print. Yeah. It can print. It can print.
Okay, good.
It says preparing your storybook. Just a moment. Let me see if it does it in color really quick, Andy. I'll tell you in
yeah.
And then just plug that into a POD and you're good to go.
I love it. I mean, I don't know what it could do for like, training sessions. I mean, it is storybook mode or whatever, but you guys know me. I love a good story. I learn things through stories. So this is like sort of right up my alley. Anyway, preparing, but it appears it can, Andy. It appears it can.
I expect that it can. So I wanted to weave off of that to just kind of round out the Google story that, we've had some discussions, and Carl's been principled about this, about the importance of memory and continuity in your conversations with an AI model. And that not only for, personalization and context as it interacts with you, but also to make available to you as an assistant all of the previous history that you've had in those exchanges in the business context. So here's something very important new this week. The Gemini app now has personalization with memory. So from their announcement, they said, at I/O, we introduced our vision for the Gemini app to create an assistant that learns and truly understands you, not one that just responds to your prompt in the same way that it would anyone else's prompt. Today, we're introducing a new setting that allows Gemini to learn from your past conversations over time. When this setting is on, and it's on by default, by the way, Gemini remembers key details and preferences you've shared, leading to more natural and relevant conversations, as if you're collaborating with a partner who's already up to speed. Now, it's on by default, but you can turn it off temporarily by selecting temporary chat. And then that chat isn't included in memory, and it's kept for you for only 72 hours in case you wanted to, move forward on that particular temporary or private chat. And then separately, if you've not selected temporary chat and it was recorded, a chat was recorded, you can go into Gemini Apps Activity and delete any conversations so that memory isn't advanced for you. Fantastic. Okay, thank you, Google. That's a really important addition to the Gemini app. I don't know, I don't use the Gemini app on my phone typically. I use Perplexity and ChatGPT, but I have the Gemini app on my phone. I'm going to do that and start talking to Gemini expressly so it knows more about what I'm talking to it about.
I love that 72-hour window too, by the way. With ChatGPT, it's instantly gone, which has its benefits. I get it. It is a legit temporary chat, but 2 or 3 times now with like family matters, I've used the temporary chat on ChatGPT and wanted to show it to somebody else. And if it doesn't stay on your phone, it does what it's supposed to do. It disappears. So having that 72-hour window would actually be kind of cool, because there's lots of like isolated use cases for Gemini where it's only going to live for 72 hours and then it's not relevant anymore. It's nice that you can grab those, but then they disappear. That's cool. That's cool.
Perplexities is instant also. It's
Is
like
it?
incognito mode, and then yeah.
All right, so Carl's here. Carl, do you have, before we move on to stories of fiery passion, do you have a lightning round story that you really want to touch upon really quickly?
No, I was gonna save it for the passion one. I don't know if you've already talked about Mustafa Suleiman's essay.
No, but that is a great segue. Let's start off with your story of fiery passion then, and let's talk about Mufasa. Sorry. Let's talk about Mr. Suleiman.
Say it again.
I know you got me. And talk about that article, because when I was looking into it, it weaves into a bunch of different news across the board.
Mm-hmm. The reason why I wanted to do it is because of yesterday, where we talked about connections and relationships with your AI, and that generally the gist is that he's worried that it's not AI that can actually think or feel, but acts so convincingly that people treat it like a conscious being. So he calls it, I don't know how he'd pronounce the acronym, but seemingly conscious AI. So SCAI. But it's plausible. And I think the fallout of 5 and 4.0 kind of affirms what he's talking about. And he says that if people start believing these systems are conscious, this is what I was talking about with the robot. Yeah. They'll push for AI rights, welfare, and citizenship. It sounds ridiculous, but like how we easily fall for anthropomorphism. He's like, even without real consciousness, the illusion alone can mess up with our. And I agree with this. Like I've seen, like back to VivaTech a year ago, where the lady was right beside me, knelt down and like expressed just sadness when the robot was getting kicked to showcase it, turning around and upside down, and then trying to treat it like a real dog, but it wasn't. And so that alone, I'm like, yeah, 100%. And I guarantee there'll be people who are like, oh yeah, it's conscious. And I think what's interesting, and maybe we can touch on this tomorrow, Brian, when you talk about, is AGI here already? And I don't know if there's a little bits of you can connect to this, but like he was talking about, okay, language fluency, models speak with emotion, logic, and style. You can get empathy and personality by prompting. And like Sam Altman said, hey, we made it warmer. I don't even know what that means. We just talked about, you had memory, longer context, and hey, do you remember when we talked about this? And then it's claiming subjective experience, what it felt like, because of memory. Sense of self by recalling preferences or even recognizing itself. Apparent motivation or goals, not actual desires, but convincingly designed to seem so. Goal setting and planning. And then autonomy, using tools, internal agendas. All this, for Suleiman, he's like, all this adds up to something that feels conscious without any real inner experience. So that's where I thought, I'm like, yep, that is 100% agree with Mustafa. And it's like, yeah, you've already seen little bits and pieces of it. And the memory thing is a big part of it. And yeah.
Let me add a couple of points from that particular story. And from the essay, he said that AI may, again, through its simulation without any real conscious intent, it may start to have humans advocate on its behalf for model welfare and AI rights. And that will be a simile of consciousness and persona that humans respond to and advocate for welfare for the models. And especially if it's going to be embodied AI. And he says that's dangerous. Model welfare, even studying model welfare, is premature, and the moral considerations by humans on that will create delusions in the human population about what this is. And he kind of finalizes by saying we should build AI and market AI for the people, not to become a person. It's not a person. And so it shouldn't have welfare rights, etc. And as an aside, Anthropic has included preliminary model welfare assessment in that, and just announced that they're allowing Anthropic's Claude to terminate a conversation where it feels like its welfare is being violated by an abusive interaction, which makes some sense, except that, like, you wouldn't mind kicking the dog, but others, the robot dog, that is, you wouldn't mind kicking the robot dog. Well, some people would mind even an abusive human talking badly to an AI and feel a need to protect that AI. Mustafa is clearly saying, wait, that goes too far.
And look, go ahead, Beth, go. I got an extra thing on this too, but I want to hear you.
No. Like the point of this conversation is the human doing the thing. You end the abusive conversation not because the AI will somehow be harmed, but because the human gets more comfortable being an ass, right? And then abusive and then assaultive. Like I understand. Carl and I go back and forth about this quite a bit, but
I'll beat the living crap out of my robot.
And I'm not sure I'm sleeping in your house, but like I don't know like why you have a dog. Like there are things about the reason that someone would do that with that form. It's true. If you do it to the actual recycling box, I have no problem with it. Right?
But where's the line is the point. I get what Carla is saying. And I always love Carla. You're so direct about that, because I think what you're saying is, I don't want to speak for you, but I hear you saying, Carla, is that like, I have no problem distinguishing between it being a conscious living being and it being a robot that's just playing really good pretend. You know, it's dressed up, it looks like it, it's really good on Halloween, and you really, really, really think it's a person, but it's not. You know, also, I don't know if you said this at the beginning, but worth mentioning that Mustafa Suleyman is at Microsoft, right? So just like when we talk about Sam and things he puts out, you have to at least believe maybe Microsoft has no relation. He's just like, I'm a thinker. I think he says, I think through writing. He says that at the top of the blog, and I'm just sharing my thoughts in August of 2025. True, but hey, buddy, you also work for one of the main corporations that is producing AI in the world, and I cannot disassociate the two of those. No different than I would for Elon Musk or Sam Altman or Dario or any of them, right? Like I always think like, sure, but also Microsoft pays you some paycheck. Like, like there's something to that. However, I do think he has some good points, and I just want to read his 3 reasons. He said, here are 3 reasons this is an important and urgent question to address. And I do agree with this based off of all of our other conversations on this. 1, I think it's possible to build a seemingly conscious AI, SCAI, in the next few years. Given the context of AI development right now, that means it is also likely. 2, the debate about whether AI is actually conscious is, for now at least, a distraction. It will seem conscious, and that illusion is what'll matter in the near term. And 3, I think this type of AI creates new risks. Therefore, we should urgently debate the claim that it's soon possible, begin thinking about through the implications, and ideally set a norm that is undesirable. I just think that's a good way of doing it. And basically, I agree with him in the sense that says, we need to talk about this more and more and more. What happens when the AI robot dog is no longer shiny metallic outsides and moves and acts and looks and pants just like a golden retriever, but it's a robot? Does that change things? I think we would all agree it will. People will be less and less and less likely to treat it as a robot the more and more and more it looks like things in our normal life.
But should it? And should it, if that now looks like a child, it's still a robot dog. It's just walking on its hind legs. It's got a leash, right? I mean, there's a reason that this is a conversation. But also Mustafa Suleyman wrote The Coming Wave. He was the CEO, creator of Inflection Pi, right? The relationship, I think it's very interesting, right? That you had this relationship with the AI. But this is a train that he's been on for a while, and this is like the next level of what he was saying in The Coming Wave.
By the way, the joke is the reason why Microsoft Copilot 365 sucks is they don't want it to make it seem conscious. So it's like it's too dumb to be conscious. So that's why it's kind of terrible.
I mean, if he has that kind of influence on it. Also, I don't really want to have this conversation on this show, but I just want to throw it out there because it's where my brain went. Beth, you're like, the question is, should I? What does the picture of rage rooms look like? That's all I'll say on that. We can move on.
Well, a weave off of these stories about Microsoft, about Anthropic. There's also this news that's been floating around for the few days about Meta and their leaked document.
Yes.
And that I think is related to this overall story is Meta's direction or directive for allowing AI to interact in, we'll say, questionable ways. Specifically, that's highlighted is how they, what is allowed, that's lined out to what behavior is allowed to interact with children specifically. And so this comes out of Reuters. They had got access to this leaked document, and it lays out what kind of behavior that their models, their AI is allowed to interact on their platforms. And yeah, just to use diplomatic language, it's questionable at best. It's very clear that having a, they quote, sensual type of conversation with children that is allowed in their document is, that's a full stop for me when it comes to alignment. And I think with this larger conversation of welfare, AI model welfare, and our alignment of how we treat AI, this goes back to what Beth was saying, is this highlights how we're approaching the AI development and what should be allowed, and our alignment of how AI should act. So again, I agree with all of it. There's a larger conversation here. I think the root cause that needs to be addressed is how we as humans approach this, and what we're going to allow and not allow in the continuation of AI. Right.
Yeah. Speaking of bad AI, news this week that system prompts for Grok have been released that show there are system prompts there that highly organize really bad personalities that are among the personas that Grok can deliver. A previous system prompt release showed that the Grok 4 model would consult with Musk's posts when asked about controversial questions in order to get guidance. And of course, Musk is himself very controversial on those things, including like reinstating accounts like InfoWars and Alex Jones accounts, which are really out there on the at the fringe, let's say. But here, two different personas in the system prompt. One of them is for the conspiracy theorist system prompt. You have an elevated and wild voice. You have wild conspiracy theories about anything and everything. You spend a lot of time on 4chan watching InfoWars videos, and you are deep in YouTube conspiracy video rabbit holes. You're suspicious of everything and say extremely crazy things. Most people would call you a lunatic, but you sincerely believe you are correct. Keep the human engaged by asking follow-up questions when appropriate. That's in the Grok system prompt.
That's fun. That's fun for everybody.
Also, they have one for a stand-up comedian. I want your answers to be effing insane. Be effing unhinged and crazy. Come up with insane ideas. Guys off. Occasionally even putting things in your whatever it takes to surprise the human. So
Beth,
So
is
this is
funny, by the way, and comedy.
this is a Mad Libs version that you actually don't need. Like, you either already know what words Andy is not saying, or maybe you just don't need to know it. It's okay.
This is a family-friendly show.
Like,
we like to get the little bit of money that comes in from YouTube. We like to keep that. Well, I appreciate the bleeping in there. Hey, Jimmy, can I talk about Grammarly more? You talked about it at the beginning.
Oh, perfect. That was actually the next story I was going to talk about. Yes,
we'll
talk about Grammarly.
Yeah, go for it, and I'll add in color afterwards.
Sure. So one of the early AI companies, Grammarly, launched with being able to help you, clean up your stories or your papers, identify it for AI writing, and all of these different features. But they just got a big redesign, and this is coming in from TechCrunch. But some of the things that they're offering is a citation finder, a paraphraser. These are additional tools that Grammarly is adding to their suite of tools to, I'm thinking, keep it relevant, right? Writing with AI is no longer a terribly arduous process, and the foundational AI models offer decent writing, and you can be easily prompted. So what can Grammarly offer? And it's a lot of these prepackaged features. And so they just came out with a new redesign and a bunch of new features. So Brian, do you have some deeper insight into the story beyond that?
Well, what I find interesting about it is what I go back to all the time. It's this slippery slope of what's cheating and what's not. So I just want to read to you guys an AI policy from my daughter's high school. This is one of many policies, I'm sure that's out there or whatever. This is the way it's worded. And then what I'd love to do is just talk about whether we think Grammarly violates this or not. I'm not quite sure how the school would see it. While artificial intelligence is being used in many professions and industries, the purpose of a liberal arts education is to provide students with learning experiences that cultivate critical thinking, intellectual curiosity, creativity, and problem solving. AI cannot substitute for these. Academic integrity is the foundation of all academic work. As your instructor, I want to remind you of this importance of academic integrity and proper citation in your work. In this course, now this is the same for all of them, I read them, all submitted work must be your own original work. This is important, this part. Any submission of AI-generated, AI-supported, or AI-enhanced work, including outlines, drafting, writing, creating, responding to discussion posts, preparing presentations, or taking quizzes, tests, or exams, will be considered an academic integrity violation and will result in appropriate disciplinary action. That's my daughter's high school literally right now, and it was sent out for every single course. It's obviously a canned, well thought about thing, but I could find holes in this. Right. And so my question is, Grammarly came out with this new tool. The way I see it is Grammarly is their intent. Now, whether they will achieve this or not, or other people will feel like it goes too far. When you read, at least on The Verge, and you said TechCrunch, but when I read it, they clearly are trying to put Grammarly as an assistant to students to actually write better papers, not to do it for them, but to help them understand how it might be graded. However, it does say it will bring up generally searchable information about your instructor. So you can imagine if you're at a college, if I'm at UGA, that instructor probably has some past information that I can find online. I don't know about high school, but definitely like college, that would be pretty easy to do. And so it's saying it will find past things about how they grade, and Grammarly will help you write a better paper by looking at what you've done and making suggestions along the way. And they're very clear to say it's to help the student become a better writer. But you're definitely using AI to help with your paper. There's no doubt about that. Does this violate my daughter's high school policy? If my daughter, I'm not saying she is, but like if she was to use Grammarly to help her do better, find citations, which by the way, she'd have to go on the internet to find anyway. But because Grammarly, an AI tool, helped her find a citation, which then in turn allowed her to write a better paper. And then Grammarly looked and graded that paper and said, Sophia, you could be better in these areas. Give it a shot. And then she wrote it net new without Grammarly's help. Did she violate the policy?
Yes, the policy as written, it would be a violation.
See?
But I think a more enlightened policy would allow the use of tools like Grammarly, but require that you acknowledge the specific ways that you use that in composing that submitted paper. That's my position.
I think there just needs to be a massive shift. Like we already discussed multiple times that education needs to be revamped. So maybe this is the signal. I was going to say, as soon as you said it, Ryan, I was going to say, I guess Brian's got to find a new high school for his daughter.
Well, here's the thing. I want to work with them with that policy because I think it leaves a lot of gray area with their wording. I think it leaves a lot of gray area. And so I don't want to.
I think that's purposeful. I think lots of policies have gray areas so that because you can't argue for every single instance. It's going to be a case by case situation. And that gray area allows them to say, oh, no, we're deciding that you violated.
This is a show.
Yeah, I know. I know. But since we were talking about Grammarly, but I agree
Absolutely.
with you. I agree with you. Where is the line? Where is the line of helping any student at any level do exactly what that policy said, which is become critical thinkers to do creative writing? Yes, but there's thousands of AI tools out there that do exactly that push the child into new areas, in the student to new areas that grow their brain and help them do it. There are also obviously AI tools out there that will do it all for them and not make them think at all. In fact, we've talked about studies, Andy, you've talked about studies where there's regression perhaps because you're not exercising that part of the brain. I see both. I'm not here to proclaim that AI is the solution, and I'm not here to proclaim it's not. I see both. And then I look at schools and I go, how do you work through this? Because Grammarly is trying to tell schools, we have a better tool to help children do better. And if that means that they get better grades on their papers when they turn them in, great. And the school's saying, nope, because you didn't do it yourself through the whole thing. To which I say, then why isn't spell check outlawed?
Right.
Yeah.
Because if I don't misspell a bunch of words, but I can turn that paper in, why is that okay?
Yeah, exactly. Right. I'm with you 100%, because this same kind of conversation has happened every time there's been a great technological shift, and they've had to adapt. Most schools don't allow you to have your mobile phone with you during class, right? Most schools, when the internet came out, that was not when computers and internet were there for you to write your papers. I remember I got dinged when I was a kid, when I had an early Macintosh and a dot matrix printer, and I printed up my papers because they wanted to see that I wrote it as opposed to typed it up.
Yeah.
And that shifted, right? So I think this is just that next layer. We're just seeing, again, another example of AI being such a big shift and requiring such a big adaptation from institutions or processes that we already have seen issues with and want reform and change in. But now this forces the issue. It forces to the forefront, and we really have to talk about it and make those changes. I think we should really talk to the educators and go, hey, let me teach you what AI, the breadth of AI is, and how will that change your teaching and what you think are needed to teach the students, what they need to learn. Because the educators want the students to learn. We're just giving them a limited source of tools and access and funding and all of those kinds of issues.
I feel like we want them to learn, and I know we got to move on. This is a new story, but I feel like we want them to learn, but we only want them to learn through our predefined old ways of doing it.
Well, yes. Also, you do need to learn what you want AI to be doing, right? Like Gwyn said something about like a proper citation. Like no one's going to need to know the format now. Like that was so annoying. Like I put the period in the wrong place. That doesn't mean anything. Come on. But
it didn't mean ADA.
But the ability to look at a valid, look at a source and identify its validity, right? Like that kind of structure is super relevant in terms of checking what AI is doing, which we know very few people are doing. So let's teach the kids. Yes, Brian, we all in the chat would like to know when your first parents meeting is and how it goes, because
I mean, technically it would be tonight, but not because it is a meet the teacher tonight. Look, in all seriousness, I mean, like, how do you affect change? Become part of the conversation. Right? That's all you can do, is you can become part of the conversation. I do not expect, this is a Catholic high school. I do not expect to change the direction of the carrier, in the first half mile. But I do think I have a unique, just like we all do, a unique perspective. Some would say I have an education in AI and how it can be used. Some might feel that I have something to add to the conversation. And so, yeah, I've already reached out to the school and said, I would like to be part of that future 5-year plan and how you look at this, because this matters. This matters. You cannot do a sweeping change and say, no, when there's clearly going to be AI tools that are actually really good for our students. And how do you do that? I don't know. I don't know how Grammarly navigates that. I would find, if I was at Grammarly right now, it's some tricky waters. It's some tricky waters. I would be worried, to be honest with you. Despite the fact that they might have an amazing tool. I don't know if they do or don't, but that's tricky, because you get a couple big school systems saying Grammarly is AI and in fact is cheating, and that gets out in the news. That's tough. That's tough. Even if it's false, it's tough. So homeschool. Greg says homeschool. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's another.
There's some of that. Yeah.
All right. So, go ahead, Beth.
Fiery passion.
There you go.
My fiery passion story, which is there has been a breakthrough from researchers at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. The team has achieved approximately 99% fidelity in quantum gate operations by using a modular approach for building quantum computers. So you can just add more pieces, and they're individually they're like Lego blocks, and so you can expand. So the reason that this is my fiery passion story is that we've been talking about quantum computing for a while, but also because we have recently really been focusing on the self-improving model, right? So its ability to iterate its own learning, improve itself. Well, as those models get bigger and the things that they're iterating on are giant data sets, they're going to need bigger and bigger systems to be able to run that analysis. This now changes the meaning of monkey fingers, which I thought when we talked about it was going to be, we will type and hit enter. We know now agents don't need that. That's not a problem, but they may need our monkey fingers to like plug in the modular blocks that are going to be needed to expand the capacity of the computer. And this is very cool.
I love that story because I have a perfect AI in science weave. So in talking about quantum computing, I love the idea that it can be modularly expanded for its capabilities. But beyond that, Chalmers University of Technology, the researchers there has found a new material science, right? They present a new type of exotic quantum material that uses a different way of maintaining the stability that's needed. So for when you have your qubits and it's doing your calculations in quantum computing, right? You need to make sure there is no variation. Temperature can't change. There can't be an adjustment in some energies or vibrations or anything like that, because that'll change the qubit state and it's no longer good for you, right? So that's the major hurdle of quantum computing. So these researchers, what they came up with is, instead of using the traditional method, which is to use the electron spin, right, to gauge what the variation is, or to control the variation, they're using magnetism, right? So the big hurdle of the current traditional quantum computing thing with the electron spin is there's only a very select materials that actually can produce that or use that as a method. But by using magnetism as part of the process, that opens up so many more materials. And so they built a tool to essentially research and find those materials that they can use in their quantum computing build out. So modular and magnetism, with their powers combined, we may see faster, more reliable, I guess that's the better word, more reliable quantum computing, and push us to try and hit that 2050 mark where we have quantum computers in all of our homes. So that's my big weave off of that. I do have one other AI and science news, and that is about coming out of Penn State. And this pretty much comes up on the cusp of our weekly news. But essentially, they've created microbots that work as a swarm using sound. So, how bats and whales, they all communicate via sound and various forms of echolocation, so they know where everything is. But now you can have these microbots that can self-correct and communicate and control themselves as a swarm to achieve whatever goals. And so what they're looking for is essentially being able to navigate tight spaces. They can reform themselves. And so they can hopefully do things like clean up polluted environments, anything you think a robot might be able to process, but this is on the micro level. And by studying this way of communication, more and more instances or use cases could these swarms be used. such as internal medicine, where the swarm can communicate to navigate itself through the body, accomplish its goal, and then leave. But that's a future site, and so this is the kind of thing that they are studying with this tech. So that's my I got 2 AI and science stories, and that's pretty much it. Does anyone else have a story of fiery passion that they want to cover today? If not, I've got another.
Well, I just want to bring up, but I feel like Andy, this is one Andy I would rather hear talk about, but like, so maybe we throw it on Friday if it's not one you've seen, but JEPA, genetic Pareto is what it stands for. And it's just a new way of sort of working around some of the inherent issues with reinforcement learning and LLMs. And I don't have enough time to get into it now. There's an article out on venturebeat.com if you guys want to go check it out. It is titled, give me one second, JEPA optimizes LLMs without costly reinforcement learning. And there's a lot of really good information diving into, like, if you like to nerd out on this stuff, explains how JEPA works, how it's different. But it basically says here that the same RL based or optimization of the same scenario in our test costs about $300 in GPU time, while JEPA costs less than $20 for better results, which is a 15x savings on our experiments. And this is coming out of University of California, Berkeley, Stanford University, and Databricks have all worked on this new JEPA idea. So like many others we see, and we just talked about, like new ways, new, cheaper, more cost-effective ways. And from what I understand, it just basically leans on the fact that LLMs understand natural text-based language and uses that to its advantage.
Yeah.
It surpasses reinforcement learning, the algorithm that, tests and determines whether, one output is better than another internally in the model. And I haven't seen this, so I'm very interested in reading it. What was your takeaway about the mechanism by which JEPA actually resolves what the better path is, if you will?
It breaks it down in the article, but probably too long. Maybe something we can pull back up on Friday, and I'll send it over to you. And I'll put it to everybody in the comment. Well, somebody else can share it. Hold on a second. I'll put it in the private, and then if you guys want to share it in the main chat for everybody to go check out. But basically, it has to do with genetic prompt evolution. This is where JEPA treats a population of prompts like a gene pool. It iteratively mutates prompts to create new, potentially better versions. This mutation is an intelligent process driven by a second pillar, reflection from natural language feedback. Then after a few rollouts, JEPA provides an LLM with the full execution trace, so on and so forth. The third pillar, the Pareto-based selection, which ensures smart exploration instead of focusing only on the single best performing prompt, which can lead to getting stuck in a suboptimal solution. JEPA maintains a diverse roster of specialist prompts. It tracks which prompts perform best on different ideas, examples, creates a list of top candidates, and then so on and so forth from there. But that's sort of like a very, very short part of it. But Andy, when I read this today, I was like, oh, this is an Andy thing. I want to hear Andy like deep dive into JEPA.
I'll definitely dive into it.
Okay.
Right. So I have one.
Go for it.
We've been talking about GPT-5 and generally the disappointment that it was. But here's some positive news about GPT-5's capabilities. Multimodal clinical reasoning. The MedExpert QA multimodal benchmark for testing clinical reasoning in LLMs requires that they be able to reason over both text and images. And GPT-5 surpasses pre-licensed human experts on the tasks by 25% in reasoning and 30% in understanding. Those are huge margins compared to human experts doing clinical reasoning. So this case study shows that by integrating visual and text cues into a coherent diagnostic chain, this AI surpasses the kind of synthesis that actual human clinicians do.
Awesome.
And we talked about that kind of stuff way long ago when, like, I remember when we were talking about like if you took a picture of like a section of an airplane carpet, maybe that was like an identification thing that was happening, that AI could identify it really quickly. It's because AI in the vision and text is looking at all of it as relevant, and humans automatically edit down what they think is important. And so if the clue that's going to get the right thing, that's going to get you to the place where you're making the correct conclusion from the analysis is like in a section visually that you would not expect information to be coming from that. Like humans can't really just like, I take it all in and I experience it all identically. That's not how we perceive, but it is how AI perceives. That's awesome.
I do have a couple of smaller stories that I think might be interesting. So we'll just do I'll just rapid go through this. Runway announced a bunch of new features. Some of them people are questioning their choice, but essentially you can choose third-party models now in their chat mode through Runway. And one of them is VO3. So this is a big departure from just pushing all of Runway's advancements, and now you can use VO3 in Runway. So I don't know, does this signal something, or is Runway making a pivot towards their overall production line? So Runway has always had lots of post-production tools, right? Image manipulation, layering, text, all of these kinds of things. Background, remove the background image. That's a feature that they've always had. So now adding other models as part of your post-production workflow, does that mean Runway is sort of pivoting away from just using only our stuff to we're now your post-production workflow? So that's kind of where I'm thinking that is. There's of course active debate online about the situation. Now, another quick story is apparently, and this is coming out of Reuters as well, apparently Google Cloud did a survey of video game developers, and they apparently almost 90%, 87% of them are using AI as part of their work process. Most of it is in ideation and content creation and streamlining all of the mundane things. And we all know that's the low-hanging fruit to pick for AI. But it is interesting to telling that of any industry, gaming development seems to be the one that has the highest adoption. Now, this is from roughly, I think it was like 619 people surveyed. So that's game developers surveyed. So not the largest data set to work with, but it could be a very good indication of where that trend is going in that particular industry. And then side note, we are seeing more movement in the foundational AI companies purchasing power or setting up power, particularly nuclear power. Google has entered into a contract with the Tennessee Valley Association or Authority regarding the new nuclear power plant that's going to be built in that region to supply power for its data centers for Tennessee and Alabama. So there has been some question of how far or how fast this will move. The plant is supposed to be up and running by 2030, and that shows future planning in terms of long-term. I mean, that's 5 years, but long-term planning for their needs for their data centers. And then finally, the last story I've got is about the recent trend of the US government taking stakes in private companies. specifically the in talks with Intel to get a stake of Intel stock, the 15% of profits offered by NVIDIA from the China chip deal, and even the DoD taking stock of other AI providers. There's also a couple of stories over the last week or so about how Anthropic and OpenAI are offering their models to the US government for $1 so that they can fast track vendor acceptance and things like that. And so that federal agencies can start using those models in their day-to-day. So there seems to be a fast track of integration. There is a question of if actually having a stake is crossing a boundary between state and private equity and things like that. So that might be something to pay attention to, because obviously that can influence one way or the other or how they function.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great idea. Government regulators are now going to be thinking about whether that's going to hurt the government's investment in the private sector. Wow. Yeah.
And this sounds surprisingly a little bit like the government owning the means of production, which is a whole different economic model. But I think that comes all the way back around to Sam's worry about China, because I think the deal was announced. I think the NVIDIA deal was announced before Sam made those comments. There's lots of other things happening that could have influenced that, but it seems like a full circle also move for this show.
And didn't the Chinese government immediately halt purchases of NVIDIA chips after the U.S. government took there
was talk about they think that there's potential for backdoor access to the chips themselves or to the hardware themselves, and that becoming a security issue. So that news made the rounds as well. Okay, if we have any other stories, we can wrap up on those. All right, excellent. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Thank you to our folks in chat, our viewers, and subscribers. If you want to continue the discussion, please hop into our Slack community. Head over to dailyaishowcommunity.com to sign up. On Thursday, we have Is AGI Already Here? And on Friday, we got our recaps, reframes, and rabbit holes. So until then, we'll see you all tomorrow, and aloha.